Final Fantasy XV has been in development for nearly a decade, and as a result has undergone a multitude of changes. But among these changes, what has transformed the most is the combat system. First available to us in Episode Disgaea, combat has changed in a myriad of ways throughout the various builds. Here are all the major ways combat has evolved. Episode Disgaea gave us our first taste of Final Fantasy XV's combat, offering a glimpse at Noctis' multi-blade fighting style. This early iteration focused on equipping weapons to particular instances of a combo. For example, you could assign a spear to the opening blow of Noctis' combo, and then assign a sword to the flurry of attacks that followed. Depending on the weapons you assigned to those particular instances, you could change Noctis' fighting style in interesting ways. While this combat system was subtly altered with minor balance adjustments via the Episode Disgaea 2.0 patch, it was completely overhauled in the Platinum demo. In that build, Noctis brandished multiple weapons, each with their own particular set of attacks and animations, and he could manually switch between them mid-combo. The combat system in this build is the same as the final preview build of the game, such as switching the lock-on button and altering the Armiger's attack animations. Weapons function similarly across all builds, with each type retaining its overall feel and attack animations. However, slight alterations were made as the builds went on. Episode Disgaea's 2.0 patch added the ability to perform variations to a weapon's attacks depending on the direction you were holding. For example, if you held forward, you could perform lunge attacks with your sword. The final preview build implements these changes, while adding in enemy resistances, which makes enemies invulnerable against certain weapon types but weak against others. However, a major feature that didn't make it to the later builds was the techniques from Episode Disgaea, which were powerful special attacks tied to weapons in your arsenal that consumed MP. Magic wasn't implemented in Episode Disgaea, but we did see it in the Platinum demo, where it was showcased as limited items you could equip and cast against enemies. While this has been retained in the final preview build, magic has been made more complex thanks to the spellcrafting system, which allows it to be given special effects depending on the items you combine it with in the crafting process. For example, you can craft a lightning spell with a curse status effect that diminishes enemy attack power. In each Final Fantasy XV build, mana points are tied directly to Noctis' Warp Blade abilities and evasive maneuvers. In Episode Disgaea, evasive maneuvers, techniques, and armature consumed MP. However, when the 2.0 patch was released, the game was updated to exclude guarding right before an enemy attack from consuming MP. These changes were mostly retained in both the Platinum demo and the final preview build, with the exception of armature, which was given its own separate meter. Using too much MP renders Noctis into a weakened state called stasis. The only way to recover from this is by taking cover or warping to a safe space. This constraint has been kept consistent across all builds, though small changes have been made to balance it. Initially in Episode Disgaea, you could attack in stasis, and you even recovered MP for an unlimited amount of time when hanging onto a point warp. However, you can no longer do either in both the Platinum demo and the final preview build. In the initial version of Episode Disgaea, you could only defend yourself by getting into a stance that allowed you to phase through oncoming enemy attacks at the cost of MP. A much requested dodge roll was later added in the 2.0 patch, while slight adjustments were made to how much MP was consumed when phasing through attacks in the defensive stance. As you fight enemies in battle, your attacks inevitably stagger them. In Episode Disgaea, this weakened state was referred to as off guard. However, it has been renamed to vulnerable in the final preview build. A backstab mechanic called blind sight has also been added to the final preview build. This gives you the ability to deal more damage to enemies when you hit them from the rear.
My pleasure. Magnificent.
When Episode Disgaea first launched, Noctis' party would only support him with standard attacks. However, once the 2.0 update rolled around, you could perform cross-chains, special, cooperative attacks that could only be performed once an enemy was staggered. Cooperative attacks have been updated in the final preview build to allow Noctis to trigger them manually. Each move can be leveled up the more you use it, increasing its overall effectiveness in battle. And there's plenty more to unlock for each member in your party the further along you get. The final preview build also adds in Link Strike and Blindside Link. These are special cooperative attacks that only occur under specific conditions when you're near an ally. Link Strike occurs just after a parry, while Blindside Link occurs when you're behind an enemy. And those are all the major ways combat has evolved over the years. For more on everything Final Fantasy 15, stay tuned to GameSpot.
Work, Gladio.